Hi, this is Ken Hale. Welcome to this update from week 2 of our Introduction to Pharmacy MOOC. Let me first say that we had hoped to actually post this video sooner, but I mentioned in our last update that it's been a brutal winter in Columbus, Ohio, as it has across much of the United States. That continued this week, and Mother Nature actually got in the way of our recording. It's so cold you can actually see Buddy off to over my left shoulder, and he's wearing a scarf that actually one of our MOOC students from the last session sent to Buddy, so he's actually staying quite warm. So here we are in week 2. We've just finished it up, and we looked at some very important questions as you were trying to understand this profession of pharmacy. So, how are pharmacists educated in the United States, and what do they study? How has this educational pathway changed over time? How are these pathways different if I wish to pursue a PhD versus a PharmD degree? What post-PharmD training options are important to fully understand the contemporary educational landscape? I hope that if you've engaged with us on our videos and our activities for our course this week, that you can answer all those questions, because they're important ones. We've had videos on the evolution of pharmacy education in our country, the pharmaceutical disciplines, an important content video, professional education in this field, residency and fellowship programs in pharmacy, and graduate research education in pharmacy as well. And you met actually 6 guest practitioners in our interview videos. I hope you're watching these because they're really important to understanding the nuances of this field, and particularly this week, the educational nuances. You've met a PharmD student, a PhD student, you've met a fellow and a resident, and you've met faculty members or staff members from our college who kind of administer admissions and the academic pieces to these programs. So it's an important way for you to learn. And of course, I've given you another set of pharmacy fundamentals this week. We've talked about continuing education, what pharmacists must do to maintain their license after their formal education. We've defined the PhD and the PharmD program for you. We've defined the pharmaceutical disciplines as we define them as medicinal chemistry, pharmaceutics, pharmacognosy, pharmacology as some of our pharmacy fundamentals this week. We also talked about pharmacy administration and pharmacy practice courses, but those are more self-explanatory. And then we've defined residencies and fellowships. Well, as you know, I'm giving you web resources to learn more in our course. So if you will go to our course website, you will see links to each week, things that you can delve into to learn a little bit more. I want to point out one of them this week, and actually, as you can see on my monitor on my desktop, the website that I'm going to refer to, this is the American Association of Colleges of Pharmacy, AACP.org. There's a link to this on our course website. And they have a thing called the Student Center, which I've gone to here on my laptop, on my desktop. And in there you'll find some very interesting things. I think you might want to peruse this website. In the Student Center, there's a pharmacy school locator, so you can find out where pharmacy schools are located in the United States. There's a section called Is Pharmacy for You? So you can learn more about the pharmacy career information, admissions, this use of PharmCAS for centralized application services for pharmacy. And then there's a current student section as well. You can learn more about the licensure exams, pharmacy residency and internship opportunities, and more. You can learn more about graduate and research programs. You can get information if you're a foreign student or graduate. There's a section for non-traditional students and some financial aid and scholarship information. So that's a really cool link for you. You can learn more. We've kind of stuck our feet into this educational pool, if you will, this week. This will be another way for you to get a little bit deeper into that and start to understand it better. And there are some other links for you there as well. I invite you to peruse those. Well, our discussion forums have been really good this course already. We're only in the 2nd week. I actually met with Emily Keeler, who's our staff assistant and assisting us in so many ways, and our teaching assistants earlier this week, and we had a very good discussion about how pleased we are with the discussion forums. So thank you for engaging in them. If you are not, I invite you to do so. I think it's an important part of a MOOC, because we give you content, but here's a really unique opportunity to engage with people all over the world about the topics that you may be interested in discussing. It's intoxicating to me, quite frankly. I enjoy getting on them. It's good to see what you're saying. So what I'd like to do is share with you just 1 or 2 discussion forum post relevant to some of the questions that I've asked you this week. So as you know, at the end of each content video, I'm posing a question that I hope you will engage into the discussion forums about, and many of you have been doing that. So the first question that I posed was, why would studies in the pharmaceutical sciences be important for someone entering a career in pharmacy practice? You know, I've been a professor at this university for 38 years, and I've taught many courses, many thousands of students live and now electronically. I've often heard students say when they're studying more of a science-based course, so why do I need to know this? You know, I'm not going to be doing that. I'm going to be doing this practice side. Well, I think, you know, the astute student kind of understands the importance of a basis in kind of a scientific or theoretical framework to be any kind of a practitioner. But let me read to you what one of your peers said. Amanda Alhabal wrote this in the discussion forum related to this thread. Studies in pharmaceutical sciences is not only important, but vital for pharmacists to obtain as a part of their PharmD programs. Medical doctors study the ins and outs of the human body. Doctors of pharmacy should study the ins and outs of pharmaceuticals in order to understand what different drugs do so well that a profound explanation can be given to the patient in a simple way. I love that last statement, Amanda. She says, we must be able to understand the information well enough to give a profound explanation to our patients in a simple way. I think it's a really eloquent way of saying how we must educate ourselves and how we must communicate. The second question I posed to you was, describe fundamental differences between graduate professional and graduate research programs. What career trajectories would you attribute to these types of programs? And this is a kind of a hidden agenda for me. One of the things I do want you to clearly understand is the difference between a program like a PhD and a program like a PharmD. Because many times, I will be honest with you, students come to admissions interviews with me, and it's not clear to me that they really understand that. So Rachel Niehaus wrote this. There is a vast difference between professional-based and research-based studies. Professional-based education deals with a combination of theoretical and practical skills. This prepares the graduate for a career based on high integrity. A career based on high integrity. I love that. We're going to think about ethics as we move through the course later. Think about us preparing ourselves for a career of high integrity. In the medical field, this would be in an atmosphere such as a pharmacist, physician, or surgeon. They have direct access to patients and must apply both their theoretical and practical training during their career. On the other hand, research-based studies focus more on the theoretical background. An individual that studies in a research-based program is better prepared for a medical-related career based on theory, such as a pharmaceutical chemist. The educational training is not comparable. So I thought Rachel put that quite kind of well, very kind of philosophical approach to that question. And I also would just add a pragmatic piece to it, that, you know, really fundamentally, we are in a PhD program preparing you for research. Rachel said that, but in a much more beautiful way. And in a PharmD program, we're preparing individuals for practice. Now, there's obviously sometimes mixing between the two. It's not all clear cut, but that's fundamentally what I want you to understand. So the next discussion thread question I posed was probably the most controversial of what occurred this week on our discussion forums, and that was this. What do you think about the ACCP proposal to require pharmacy practice residency training for those entering direct patient care practices? So we talked about residencies this week. It's a very important topic in contemporary pharmacy, education, and practice. And as I posed to you in one of the content videos, there is some discussion in the field about should we require them. And the American College of Clinical Pharmacy actually put forth a proposal that we do so by 2020. It's a controversial topic, and it was controversial on our discussion forums. And I'd like to share with you one exchange that happened in our thread between Kyle Sharp and Jillian Johnson. Kyle, and I present these to you because they actually give you a very clear understanding of the two sides of this debate. So Kyle wrote this: why not just send pharmacy students to school for 20 more years? How about a 10-year residency program? I mean, good Lord, there's no amount of certification in the world that can make sure you don't make a mistake. The residency program should arise out of a pressing need, not just for the heck of it. What this is telling me right now is that the ACCP thinks pharmacy schools aren't doing their job to prepare students. I, for one, have never gone to the pharmacist and thought, wow, I wish they had had an internship. Maybe there's something to be gained, but every additional prerequisite you create makes the cost to patients that much more because you further limit the supply of pharmacy practitioners. And here's Jillian Johnson's comment to Kyle's thread there. She said, "You have to understand that the role of the pharmacist is changing. Many years ago, pharmacists wouldn't be involved in direct patient care at all. The fact that we are moving towards having pharmacists have a more direct role in patient care and giving recommendations about the course of therapy means that they should have more training and education. I also think many students need to have that hands-on experience in order to feel comfortable making recommendations to other healthcare professionals. Without that, they may feel intimidated in a group setting and not give a recommendation that would be beneficial to the patient." So my reaction to these discussions as I got into the discussion forums was this. Jillian's reaction is well put, but I also understand Kyle's objection. We have to balance expediency with expectation in terms of practitioner development. Educational, fiscal expediency, and also practice expectations in terms of how we prepare people. Think about the pharmacist's emerging roles as a primary care provider and in chronic disease management. We'll talk about these more later on in our course. Perhaps this will make us feel differently about this potential expansion and required training. And I would also add to this that if we think about what we're going to learn about MTM next week, medication therapy management, and what we will learn about the staggering scope of adverse drug events or drug-related problems in our healthcare system, we might start to think differently about this requirement as well. I invite you to keep thinking and keep discussing about this important issue. The last discussion forum question I asked was this. If you think you might be interested in pursuing a graduate research program like the PhD in the future, what types of things could you be doing now to prepare? Well, Jonathan Morris is a member of our learning community in this MOOC, and Jonathan's been very engaged in our discussion forums. Jonathan, I thank you for the input you've been having. And he wrote a post that I'd like to read to you, but it's obviously informed by a man who's had some very significant involvement in this profession. And Jonathan, we appreciate your viewpoint. He said this: "The most important prerequisite for any PhD program is love of the field. You can't do it for money or prestige. You can only do it if you cannot get enough of it. The hours spent in academic research caused me to get glasses. The hours spent with back pains doing clinical research have to be worth it. If you can make a commitment to put in the hours increasing the basic knowledge of biochemistry, biology, chemistry, anatomy, etc., and add to that the desire to become an expert in one small part of the field that probably no one else will care about, you are ready." So I thought that was a very poetic way of Jonathan telling us what you need to have to be a good PhD student. And I might also add, again, some kind of pragmatic pieces that, you're going to be preparing yourself for a career in research if you're headed toward a PhD. Maybe getting some good experience as an undergraduate or in whatever stage of life you are would be a good move. So get a good basic understanding of the science, of the areas you're going to be studying, and get yourself in a lab and find out if you like it, and see if you have that love and that passion that Jonathan Morris just described to us. Well, and finally, as you know, there's one more mechanism, an optional mechanism that we're using to communicate with each other, and that's through Twitter. And I ask you as an optional assignment this week to tweet your position on residency requirements for pharmacy practitioners to @prof_Hale. I just want to read two of them to you. ISBL tweeted that required residency is good, as students get to put in practice what they have learned theoretically, and practice makes perfect. And then Danielle Serra tweeted this: "Residencies help new PharmDs develop their patient care skills, a good thing." So again, we have differing opinions on this idea of residency requirements. I invite you to keep thinking about it, keep talking about it. The next thing I'd like to do in this update is to bring to your attention the importance of professional journals for any kind of professional, and in terms of pharmacists for sure. And I want to share two of them with you, and it's a hidden agenda of mine to make you aware of some of our pharmacy associations. Two in particular I really want you to understand before you finish this course. One is the American Pharmacists Association, and the other is the American Society of Health System Pharmacists. APHA and ASHP are two largest organizations and really prominent in this field. And they do many things. They hold organizational meetings that pharmacists will gather and learn from each other. It's an educational forum, it's a networking forum, and they publish materials that help us to learn as well. And one of these things that they will publish are journals. So I want to make you understand, as maybe a future pharmacist, that journals are an important part of pharmacy practice or any kind of professional practice in healthcare. Because if you think about it, by the time material hits a book, it's really kind of outdated. So the journals are much more timely, much more topical. So the first one I want to talk about is the Journal of the American Pharmacists Association, JAPHA. So, as a member of the American Pharmacists Association, I get this journal once a month, and I always read through it. It's important to me in terms of staying current on what's happening in the field. And as I look at the table of contents for the current issue of JAPHA, I'll just point out one example of an article that's in here: facilitating collaboration between pharmacists and physicians using an iterative interview process. This is by a group of authors, actually 5 of them. And so here's a topic, collaborative practice, that's important to our course. It's really kind of it's a pharmacy fundamental in our course. How can we collaborate better in healthcare to provide team-based care to patients? So American Pharmacists Association has their annual meetings, they have publications that are important, they provide standards of practice that are important to our profession, and much, much more. Very important for professional development. And then the American Society of Health System Pharmacists, ASHP, likewise, all the same things I just said for APHA, ASHP does. They were on the health system side, originally called the American Society of Hospital Pharmacists, so it's kind of more on the inpatient side, but going beyond that. And they publish a journal called the American Journal of Health System Pharmacy. Same thing, once a month, current reviewed, peer-reviewed articles that are here to help me stay current. And as I look at the table of contents for this current issue of AJHP, I'll just mention one of them to you. The ASHP statement on the pharmacist's role in substance abuse prevention, education, and assistance. So one of the things we're going to talk about when we talk about medication safety issues is the prevalence of prescription drug abuse and what that means in terms of the scope of this problem, the causes of it, and the consequences. It's a big, big problem. And here's a statement about how pharmacists can help. So, I want you to be aware of these journals. Maybe you want to have a look at them as you go into learning more about this profession. It's an important thing for you to clearly understand. And let me add this. I don't want to hear you calling these magazines. These are journals. So when we think of professional publications like this, journals, not magazines. Well, we've finished week 2, and I hope that you're learning a lot. Week 3, the course content is already open, and let me remind you that each week opens on Thursday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you're looking for that content, that's when it will be released. Next week, this coming week, we're going to be studying career pathways for pharmacists and their role in the healthcare system. And I want to bring to your attention that there is one required substantial reading in the course. There's another short one we'll have later on. But the most significant required reading occurs this week. It's called Medication Therapy Management in Pharmacy Practice, Core Elements of an MTM Service Model. And this is published by the American Pharmacists Association and the National Association of Chain Drugstores. So this is the hard copy of what that looks like. There is actually an electronic copy of this reading on our course website. It's an important reading. This one's about 20 pages. But MTM, Medication Therapy Management, is perhaps the most important topic in contemporary pharmacy practice. So I really want you to understand that one very clearly, both as maybe a future professional, maybe as someone learning what pharmacists do, maybe as just a healthcare consumer. This is an important aspect of the care you can get and the care pharmacists can provide. Well, hopefully Mother Nature will bear with us a little bit more in the weeks to come, and we can get our videos posted a little bit quicker. But I've enjoyed being with you during week 2. I'm looking forward to week 3, and we'll see you next week.